name's Ray. I'm a musician, and I've always loved the question that people ask themselves, what was playing around the house when you were growing up? For me, my mom would play a lot of Elton John and Billy Joel and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Hey, yeah, I like that. My sister would play Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey exclusively, All I Want for Christmas Is You, which played at her wedding 3 times, which was pretty great. My dad, when we would drive around in his car, had 2 albums that I can remember, one of which was the full soundtrack of Phantom of the Opera, and that was it, playing over and over again. So I know that one pretty well. And my brothers in the basement, I would walk by and I would hear sounds of Fish and the Grateful Dead, and I can definitely tell you I remember all of the sounds of walking around, but especially also the smells of walking by the basement too, not to rat them out. But outside of just music and the records that were spinning, the big moments for me were the big memories that I have where I realized that music had such a power to create community and connection. The first example being when I graduated from 6th grade and my best friend and I performed and wrote the music for our graduation ceremony. I remember the song that was playing in my grandma's 80th birthday. I remember going with my sister to New York City and seeing my first live show for the first time when I was 9 years old. I remember going with my brother to downtown Rochester for the first time and seeing a busker, a street performer on the sidewalk, and my brother throwing a cigarette in his guitar case, which was a first for me as well. And I even remember being asked to play music at a friend's funeral who had passed. Everything on the spectrum, right? And so for me, I loved music so much for all those reasons of seeing the way that it could create connection, community, and empathy with people around you. And so I loved music for a long time. I would go on to learn how to play guitar, and I would start writing my own music in my own journals. It was really special to me. But at the end of the day, as a kid, I never really saw any potential for music to be anything past just a hobby or something I did for fun, right? That's what a lot of us are told. Go for something that's more traditional, more safe, something you know is going to be able to pay your bills and get some nice health insurance, right? That's important. I even remember as a kid hearing about Pharrell Williams released the song Happy. You all familiar with that song? At that time, when he released it, Pandora announced that it hit their record high streams at 43 million streams, highest streamed song ever. And they sent him a check for his royalties to Pharrell for $2,700 for hitting that highest stream mark of 43 million. Yeah, they should have sent him a note that was like, also sorry, man. It's pretty heartbreaking. So as a kid, you're like, yeah, no chance. I'm going to go do something else. And that's what I would do. I would end up going to college. I would get my major in English. I was going to teach kids because I would work with kids. And I was going to do something that was more safe. I was going to get that job, pay the bills, have health insurance. Life would be good, right? And looking back, I'm so frustrated with my own self at the box that I put around what music could do and the possibilities from it. I started to realize in my own way I was devaluing music, right? And it was really hard to kind of think back on it now, but eventually I would come out of that line of thinking in the summer of 2016. I had just come home and I was getting together with some old friends, and we got our instruments out and we jammed in someone's living room. Those jams turned into rehearsals, and those rehearsals ended up turning into us getting our first gig. And we played right here in Rochester, New York at Muller's Cider House on University Ave. It was a Monday night, June 13th. I still remember. And you could have told me, I was so amped for this show. Like, you could have told me I was playing Madison Square Garden. I had plans to, like, get up on a chair and, like, crowd surf if the opportunity presented itself. It's Monday at Muller's. Crazy, right? I also remember that show so well because I had some inclination before I got to the performance to take off my boots and put on sandals. I did bust open my big toe 3 songs into the set. So just like, it's okay. You can laugh at that. You don't have to awe that moment. That was not a great decision. But I loved it, right? And that's music at its utmost powerful aspect of when you're sitting in that room, people you love and know are all coming together and gathering around community and the power of what music can do, making you feel, making you find joy, making you find connection, empathy and sorrows and struggles. All of that happened that night. And so I was reminded, and it kind of lit this spark in me. And I chased that feeling. So for the next couple of years, I'd play with that band. We would play all around Rochester, and I would keep my ears open, right? I didn't go to school for this. I want to keep learning about what's happening here, what can music do. And while I did that, music wasn't paying the bills that my English degree was going to pay for me. So instead, I started working multiple jobs. I worked on a mobile farmer's market. I was a soccer coach for 3-year-olds. I bartended at a funeral once. I was a summer camp counselor. I did a lot of things. And this is the thing you hear about from a lot of creatives, right? Working 3-4 jobs to work the one that you really love. And in a lot of ways, I think that's supposed to feel unfair, but to me, sometimes it made me want to work harder. Some days, I would think about the music that I was putting to the side to go to X, Y, and Z job, but I really thought that there was potential if I could just stick around and get through it. But some days it got hard. And someday the dread, the feeling that I wasn't going to be able to make music work would kick in, and I would think that I wasn't going to be able to do this music career thing. And all of that would kind of come to a head in 2020, right? The pandemic hits, the lockdown happens. It's hard for millions of people everywhere. I'm not up here saying that it wasn't, but what I can speak to really is how the music community was impacted. And the pandemic and the lockdown was the very antithesis of what live music was, right? The idea of gathering and getting together and finding connection was now off the table, at least in that way. And a lot of people would come up with different ideas of doing fundraisers and live streams, but at the end of the day, music took a back seat. It was on the back burner for a couple of years. And so when this happened, I had questions going in my own brain asking, well, where was the safety net for musicians, right? There's no 401k, there's no retirement plan for a lot of these independent gigging musicians. Where was the safety net? Where were the resources for our local music community to thrive and take care of it? Who was around to protect it if things got really dark? And so I started asking these questions, and I got together with other friends, and we started to talk about the struggles that we were facing, not only money, but lack of finding gigs that we felt fulfillment by. Started talking with friends of friends, and hearing from them not only the challenges, but the love that we were finding in our own community too. So this wasn't just that we were getting together and sitting around and pouting and moping. It was like we're so grateful to be a part of this scene. What are we going to do to stand up and take care of it? And so for years, thinking about what I could do with music, it seemed like the answer was starting to hit me head on. And so all those conversations in my dining room over a fresh plate of banana chocolate chip muffins that I would make each time eventually morphed into what would become our own nonprofit organization. Myself and those musicians that really stuck around for those conversations founded the local Sound Collaborative in April of 2022. We just turned 2 years old yesterday, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, thank you. And the first thing we did, though, with all the ideas we had of what music could do and what we wanted to do with it, we said the place we have to start is see what the community needs most. And it seemed like at that time it was all financial opportunity, right? And we said, well then great, music education over here, music therapy, all worthy causes, we'll get to that, but we're gonna put our money where our mouth is. We threw a giant fundraising event, we raised $12,000, and we gave it all away. It's a great business plan if you're ever trying to start your own thing. Just get away with all your seed money. And we gave it to 5 individual musicians. They got $200 a month for a year, and that was the first step. And when I say this to people, I always try and make sure to be clear. I'm not up here saying that $200 is game-changing money, that you're going to be able to become a successful, sustainable career path in whatever it is you're doing. But it felt like a little piece of the puzzle to get started. So fast forward over the last 2 years, we've started music education classes. We work with about 15 schools and 350 kids each year now that are receiving services from our artists and musicians. We give out grants to 6 artists now at $200 a month, and we're slowly growing. And to me, it has been the most eye-opening thing of seeing everything that music can do, from how it impacts people's mental health, to how it allows people to gather, how it allows a student to find confidence in the music that they're learning, in every level. It's almost funny I didn't see it before in all the ways that it could happen. And so I want to share one story that really sticks in my head from this year, and it's so hard to try and encapsulate everything that goes on, but I think this one does the best shot. So it's November of this past year, and we teach an after-school program at a middle school in town, myself and a co-facilitator. And I haven't worked in schools for too long, but I'm under the understanding now that this is when people start to feel the burnout, kids and teachers. You haven't made it to Christmas break yet or holiday break. You haven't made it past the New Year, whatever. And so we're feeling it too, right? And we come in one day for our music class, and kids are calling each other names, they're cursing, they're wrestling until it goes too far. It's mayhem in there. And we're feeling it as well, and you could tell everything's going wrong, and everybody's fighting, and the day ends, and we're just feeling so defeated. And moments like that are really tough, especially in the education field, but it also can light a fire under you. And so what we did, myself and our co-facilitator, decided to do something we called a vibe check, which we've used now in a lot of our music spaces. Essentially, it was bringing restorative practices into the music space. And what we were gonna do as the grown-ups is go up to our group and say, we feel really frustrated with how things are going. How do you all feel? And come up with a solution together. And so there was gonna be one mic, everyone would get a chance to share, and we would hear each other out. And it kind of started, as you can imagine, everyone kind of looks to the floor. or looks up, kind of mumbles something. Someone goes like, oh yeah, I'd like to try more instruments. Okay. I'd like to, try more instruments. Okay. They're saying the same answer. Until finally, the moment happens. A girl says, I just think so-and-so is so annoying. And I'm like, no, we're so close. And I get ready to start interrupting, and before I can, another student speaks up. I don't vibe when you speak like that, she said. Doesn't make me feel good. So I'm sitting back, I'm like, oh. She responds again, well, it's just really hard to hear when I walk into the classroom and he's playing the drums so loud. It makes me feel really anxious. She responds, what if we just made a rule where you can't play drums in the first 10 minutes of class? And I know that seems so simple and small, but I don't know if any of you are teachers, but in this moment, I'm kind of doing like this in my head. Like it's just like exactly what you wanted to have happen, and they're figuring it out for themselves, right? And we take 15 minutes and we come up with more guidelines of how to make our space work, and eventually we look up at the board and we have a set of guidelines that were created by all of us for all of us. It's a huge moment. And those are the moments that keep me motivated in this work and keep me motivated to figure out how music can make an impact in our lives. Not just kids learning scales, but finding connection with each other. Not just students, being able to read the sheet music, but finding disagreements with each other and working through that. That's where I see the real power of music, whether it's in the education space or the mental health space or the performance space, it's there. And so I think we're at a precipice right now where the world is moving faster, and time again, it seems like we're getting more distant, right? People talk about being on your phones and technology and all of these things. We have a real moment right now to remind ourselves of the power of music and what it can do. How it can build love, how it can make our community healthier and safer, but also how it brings so much joy and connection into the communities that we're in. I believe music, that soundtrack that we were talking about in the beginning, it's the soundtrack to our lives, right? It's the joys and the successes that you feel. It's the heartaches and all of the horrible moments that you have to go through and the challenges and everything in between. And so we have to protect that. We have to keep things like that sacred, that keep our humanity in check. And so I believe music is powerful. I believe it has the power to change communities and unite us past our differences. I think all we have to do is just start looking for it. Thank you. And so, I think we'll do this now. We can do a little example of finding some connection and do some music for you all, if you would like that. Can we do one song? Give up one more round of applause for Jashanti on flute. And then this is my sister Kate, who's going to sing with us as well. Thank you all so much for being here.
wish I could lay down beside you when the day is done. Wake up to your face against the morning sun. But like everything I've ever known, you'll disappear one day. So I spend my whole life hiding my heart away. Woke up feeling heavy-hearted, going back to where we started. Morning rain, and how I wish that you were here. That same old road that brought me to you, calling me home. It's calling me home. I wish I could lay down beside you when the day is done. Wake up to your face